Hello and welcome, dear friends. Pastor Mark back with you for another book overview as we are about to start yet another book of the Bible. Seems like they happen really close to each other sometimes, but that's because in our reading calendar, these are in different columns. So yes, just a couple days ago we started Leviticus, but now we are finishing the Gospel of John, the fourth of our Gospels, and that column is moving into the book of Psalms. Psalms is a pretty well-known book, pretty easily findable in the Bible in that it's just about right in the middle. And I love the fact, theologically, that our biggest book of the Bible is a collection of praises and songs. Even the word psalm comes from the Greek word of a song. And sometimes old hymnals are called psalters, which is still like the term for a song book. But that's from the Greek translation. This was originally in Hebrew, and the Hebrew name for it was tephilim, also meaning praises. Many of them are actually prayers. If you look at Psalm 72:20, it says, this concludes the prayers of David, son of Jesse. So many of them were prayers put in a poetic or a musical form. And unfortunately, we don't know the melodies that were sung with these. The melodies actually wouldn't make sense with the syllables since it has been translated out of Hebrew into English. But many of these were performed at worship services, small worship services, large worship services, even royal services. The book of Psalms as we know it, with 150 psalms in it, was most likely compiled much later, after the reigns of King David and Solomon, even after the time of exile in Babylon. Probably about 300 BC, some scholars got together. They had smaller collections here and there, but they said, let's bring them all together so that in the services for the temple, and this is the second temple that Zerubbabel and Ezra and Nehemiah helped build, so that they could have services at the temple. So the book of Psalms is divided into 5 sections called 5 books. And let's remember that in Bible times they didn't have binding like we have, so they weren't really books, they were more like scrolls. And the reason that Psalm is divided into 5 sections is because the scrolls, our arms are only so big to carry so large of a scroll comfortably. So they didn't want something that was huge. They divided it into 5 scrolls. Now some of these scrolls had thematic purposes, or like all of the ones of King David are assembled together. But some of the books, like 3 and 4, seems to be a little bit arbitrary, where one book ends and where the other one begins. Many people think that David wrote the entire book of Psalms, but in reality he wrote about half. In fact, slightly less than half, something like 72 out of the 150. Some of the other authors that are mentioned there, the sons of Korah is a significant group. 12 psalms are attributed to the sons of Korah. Similarly, Asaph wrote 11 psalms. 7 of the psalms are categorized as penitential psalms regarding begging for forgiveness from God. And 14 songs are called songs of ascents. You may remember that the temple was built on a hill called Mount Zion, and those 14 psalms were songs that could be sung by pilgrims as they ascended the hill to come to the temple in Jerusalem. And then there are 34 what they call orphan psalms, because there's no known origin. There's no historical note as to who wrote it, what exactly they were for. And so to be safe, because of all these different authors, pastors or professors of religion will sometimes say, the psalmist wrote, or the psalmist said. That's a blanket term that's appropriate for any one of the writers. I try to avoid that myself. It sounds a little dry, maybe a little just erudite. So when I do check and see that it's a Psalm of David, I like to say King David wrote. Or I'll just say something like, it says in Psalm 75, it says this. So also, here's another stereotype that isn't exactly true. Many people think that all the Psalms are joyful, but in truth, they are not. Some of the Psalms are sad and lamenting, although probably the majority of those do resolve at the end in the last few verses. Kind of a downer to have a song that starts sad and ends sad, but so I'm happy for those resolutions. Some of the Psalms complain of oppression and unjust oppression at that, not unlike the book of Job that we read not long ago. Some Psalms, as I mentioned, are begging for forgiveness from God. Some of these are royal psalms that would have been used for being in the presence of the king or when dignitaries would come to visit. A lot of those kind of outline and retell the national history of Israel. Some of them are wisdom psalms, kind of like the book of Proverbs that we're going through. There are sayings of wisdom in these. Some of the Psalms are stressful, and we can identify with those in our stressful society. And even one that I have found deals with jealousy of the wicked. So I was pleased and surprised when I found that. I've been surprised many times at the content I have found in the book of Psalms. Sometimes there are bold negative statements, stronger negative statements than I would be comfortable saying before God. But like we talked about in the book of Job, here it is preserved for us as an account of what faithful people felt and even affirmed out loud. I like to say there is a psalm for every emotion that we go through in life. Take some searching, take some digging, but that's exactly what we're going to be doing here over the next couple of months. The main viewpoint of Psalms is that God is at the center of all aspects of life. From creation to the rescue of the children of Israel to help in daily struggles, God is the center of it all. Now, some sections of Psalms seem to like to use the word Yahweh, the name of God that God gave Moses in the wilderness. That's the name I like to use whenever I see capital L-O-R-D. And so whenever you're reading Psalms and it's L-O-R-D, just know that in the original Hebrew that was the name of God. I am that I am. And it's true, Hebrew people wouldn't say Yahweh. They were too afraid of breaking the third commandment. But I believe as long as we're saying it respectfully, we're not breaking the third commandment. And then there are other sections of the Psalms that seem to prefer the term Elohim. Elohim is the second most used name or title for God in the Bible. It's usually just translated God, G-O-D, without the capital letters. But I love that one because Elohim, the I am at the end, emphasizes the plurality of God. So the Jewish people were not Trinitarians. They didn't know, like we did later when things were revealed in the New Testament, of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But fascinating to me that the second most used term for God in the Old Testament, as well as the second most used in the book of Psalms, affirms God's plurality. Fascinating. There is a unique term in the book of Psalms. You'll find it at the end of many Psalms, something like 70 times in there, and it says Selah. And as I'm thinking about it, even some of those are in the middle of the Psalm. And translators and historians have no idea what Selah actually meant. It is most likely a liturgical note, like if you're having it in a service, like here's a place where we would have a musical interlude. That is the best guess of scholars, but at the end of the day, it is just a guess. So it's fascinating. It's very frequent in there. So fascinatingly, the Psalms do two things. The Psalms speak of God in praise, and they speak to God in prayer. So this is like our life, right? We speak about God to others, and we speak to God when we go into a time of prayer. The book of Psalms is full of rich illustrations. I hope that you will savor and enjoy these. There are many anthropomorphisms where God is given terms like something else, something like God in the whirlwind or God's mighty right hand, even though we know that he is a spirit in his physical sense. Some of the major themes that are in the book of Psalms. Psalms is also a highly prophetic book, and so some things that existed also had a meaning that were greater and beyond. For example, it'll use the term Zion. Zion was the hill, still there, where the temple was located. No temple there anymore. It's a Muslim mosque on top of that hill now. But that hill of Zion was a literal hill that people would go up to go to the temple. But Zion also meant the salvation place of God. So many times you will see that it means clearly more than just that hill in Jerusalem, but it represents a place of salvation. Many times descriptions of heaven or the new earth will be described as Zion. Another major theme that has a significance, perhaps even beyond what the writers understood, is when it talks about God's anointed. There are many prophecies about Jesus in the Psalms. Already in our synoptic Gospels, we've seen many things referring back to the Psalms. I think there was even one in John a couple days ago. And so they affirmed the Psalms as being messianic prophecies. So God's anointed, I kind of think lowercase a for the kings, because kings were anointed, but then the capital A, anointed, was coming. And we won't find a clue in our Bibles. It won't give capital A sometimes and not other times. But just take a look when you see that word anointed, or sometimes it's Messiah, depending on which translation you're in. But many of those point to Jesus. Jesus quoted the book of Psalms on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? Many people don't know that that is a quote of Psalm 22. In fact, it is, for a reason I'll tell you when we get to Psalm 22, it's likely that Jesus was reciting all of Psalm 22 on the cross. And so I'm thankful that that psalm is there. Also very famous in the book of Psalms, the famous 23rd Psalm, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." We'll have a special time when we get to that psalm, savoring every line of that. And so I'm looking forward to the book of Psalms with you. Many days we will be covering 2 psalms. I don't think a majority. I think it's a minority as I looked at the calendar, but some of the psalms are pretty short. In fact, both the shortest chapter in the Bible and the longest chapter in the Bible are in the book of Psalms. So 117, I think it's only something like 5 verses, shortest chapter in the Bible. But then Psalm 119 has something like 160 verses. It's because it does an acrostic with every letter of the Hebrew alphabet and gives a few lines to every letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So that day, certainly we won't be doing 2 psalms. Anyway, I'm looking forward to this journey with you, dear friends. I love when contemporary Christian artists put music to the psalms, because to make them singable does stick them in our heads. And these were originally songs. So as we go through, I'll be pointing out several times, there's this contemporary praise song with the lyrics of this particular psalm. And I'll put a link, in the comment or in the description of the video for that day. All right, so may God bless us as we endeavor into this new and important book. Hope that you are blessed daily in both the readings and the accompaniment videos that Pastor Nathaniel and I are providing. Hope those are a blessing for you, and if we can ever serve in any way, please don't hesitate to let us know. Write in the comments something that might be a particular blessing to you, or any given day we can have an oversight and not realize a big spiritual blessing that's there. We also want to use the comment section to outline specific blessings that Pastor Nathaniel or I may have overlooked. So, all right, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we're going to be on this journey in the book of Psalms for quite some time, at least a couple of months, because doing 1 or 2 a day, and there are 150 of them, you can do the math there. God bless you, dear friends. Hope to see you very soon. Hope to see you in person in our sanctuary before too long. Though, of course, we have no drama, no pressure for those who still don't feel safe coming out because of the virus. God bless you all, dear friends. Hope to see you very soon. Blessings in Jesus' name.